Good evening, everybody. The time is 7 o'clock and welcome to the Strategic Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I will now hand over to Angela Wakefield, the Director of Legal and Governance.
Thank you, Jane. As neither the Chairman nor the Vice Chairman are present this evening, I will invite nominations to be elected to preside at this meeting. Thank you. Could I have a seconder? Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That's carried. Councillor Brown, you're in the chair.
Right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to members of the committee and members of the executive and cabinet members who are here and those listening in via Zoom. First item on the agenda is apologies.
Yes, Chair, we have received apologies from Councillor Gail Waller, Councillor Nick Beggy, Councillor Kenneth Boole, Councillor Leah Toseland, Councillor Stephen Lambert, and Councillor Edward Baines. However, we have Councillor Raymond Payne, Councillor Gordon Brown, and Councillor Paul Brown attending as the representatives for Councillors Waller, Beggy, and Lambert, respectively.
Thank you. Item 2, records of the meetings held on the 26th of January and 9th of February. So the minutes of the 26th of January. For those who were here, do we have to have a proposer and a seconder, presumably, do we, to approve those? Can we have a proposer, please? Councillor Ainsley, seconder. Councillor Brown, all those in favour?
No, sir, but thank you.
Abstentions? Anyone against? Don't think so. And then on the 9th of February, again, can we have a proposer, please? Councillor Ainsley, seconder. Councillor Wilson, all those in favour?
Thank you.
Abstentions? And no one against. Okay, thank you. Actions arising. What do we do with that item?
Just read them out.
All of them?
Yes. There's quite a few.
Right, okay. Actions arising, summary of actions 26th of January, number 1. Deputy Leader and Portfolio Holder for Planning, Highways and Transport to send Councillor Beggy. The details regarding post removed with the Development Control Team. That is for the attention of Councillor Powell. 2 is the committee request that a report to Council on the Levelling Up Fund be clarified to enable full understanding of the government's requirements regarding capital funding. That's with the Strategic Director of Places.
Sorry, just need to check what the actions have been done.
Oh, right, okay. So as Councillor Powell's on the line, I see, so she can confirm. She's nodding.
Yes, Chair, that information was provided.
Okay, thank you. And item 2, Strategic Director of Resources. It doesn't appear to be here. Has that been done, Jane?
I will chase that and find out and confirm.
Okay, thank you. Number 3, committee requests that the portfolio for holder for health, wellbeing and adult care kept members up to date on any increases in risk costs regarding community support services. That's Councillor Harvey, who isn't here. Okay.
I've spoken with Councillor Harvey, Chair, and yes, she will be doing that action.
Okay, thank you. And number 4, the Strategic Director of Resources to send details to councillors regarding what saving could be made by closing the council's post room a few days a week and what impact this would have on services. That's the Strategic Director of Resources.
And yes, that was an action for Sav, and I will chase that up with the new director to make sure. He did, yeah.
Okay, so that's been actioned.
Been
has it?
actioned.
Okay. And then actions from the 9th of February, portfolio holder for primary care network to ask the primary care network if patients would charge for the call whilst waiting on hold and would notify members of the response. That's Councillor Harvey.
I will contact Councillor Harvey and make sure that that's been done. I know she hasn't been well.
Right. The portfolio holder to ask the primary care network about the possibility of GP practices in the future pooling their individual phone services into a combined service. That's Councillor Harvey again.
I will contact her again.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I was in a meeting the other day with PCN and that was discussed and they are exploring options with the integrated care board.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Andrews. Culture Stroke Asset Review Task and Finish Group, Councillor E. Baines, with support of governance to continue to seek information from the education establishments as to how the culture offer would be of most benefit to students and how they might become involved. That's Councillor Baines and governance.
Yep, Councillor Baines I've spoken with and we are sorting that out.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Homelessness Evidence Panel final report. Councillor Walter meet with the portfolio holder to reword recommendation 6.2 for discussion approval at the meeting of scrutiny on the 9th of March, which is that the one that was cancelled?
That is the meeting that was cancelled because of the weather.
Yeah.
I have spoken with Councillor Waller. Yes, she has met with the portfolio holder and the reworded is actually on the agenda for final approval.
Okay, thank you. Item 4, declarations of interest. Has anyone got any declarations of interest? Nope. Okay, 5, petitions, deputations and questions.
Sorry, none received, Chair.
Item 6, questions with notice from members.
None received, Chair.
Item 7, notices of motion from members.
None received, Chair.
Item 8, consideration of any matter referred to the committee in relation to the calling of a decision.
No callings have been received.
Item 9, portfolio holders update. To receive an update from Councillor Wilby, portfolio holder for education and children's services, covering the visions, children's centre, the childcare sufficiency statement and the childcare review. Councillor Wilby.
Thank you very much, Chair. And this brief comes to you from the delayed meeting of the 9th of March. We'll start off with education, and Ofsted came out of the traps very quickly in the new year and have been running us hard. And we've had visits at Ryle, Ketton, Great Casterton, UCC, St Nicholas, Catmers C of E and Edith Weston. So they have been giving us quite a good grilling. And so far as we know at the moment, we're all maintaining good. But we wait to get the full debrief on that. Moving to the extension at Catmers campus, we're still on track. If any of you have the time or happen to be in the school, you will see that the Brightways conversion has been completely finished off. And if you look at the back end of the school, the superstructure is already in place for the main extension. It looks an interesting project. The headmaster is very much on track with it, and he likes to put his hard hat on and wander around and show you around. And I know that he will be very keen to keep us on track and on time, on budget. In terms of Harrington is now going at full bore, and the I think they have a much wider curriculum than they had initially, which is good. I'm told that the sciences are well taken up, and they are looking at quite a few Oxbridge places in the offing at the end of this term. The interview project that we started some years ago was put in abeyance because of COVID. It has we've been able now to crack it off again. It's planned for the 3rd to the 7th of July. The school's choice of dates, it's after the mocks. And some of you will have seen that I'm looking for interviewers, and I'd be grateful for your help on that. It's quite a busy program. We'll run 4 interview officers a day for 5 days, and in that time we are looking to get through 7 interviews in each office a day. And because they are so full now, it's quite a major task. So I will be chasing you all later on, and I know there's some very learned gentlemen who'd be magnificent here. I'll give you a full briefing on what's required. It's not so much the detail, but it's giving the kids a chance to actually speak to someone who they don't know for the first time, many of them, and get them talking. The Uppingham Community College inclusion project is going well. Part 1 is finished and part 2 is swinging into action. So far, we're nicely on time, nicely on track, and the head master, Ben Solly, is really well behind the initiative, and I'm really pleased. Casterton College is hoping for a good grant. Just I guess round about the turn of the year, they got news that there was they were being looked on favorably by the DFE. As to date, we don't know how much or when any help might come, but if any school needs it, Casterton needs it. So hopefully there'll be some refurbishment going on in there, and I'll let you know the details when I have them. We are finalising details for Oakham C of E to join Rob Gooding's Academy, Rutland Learning Trust. That's been a bit of a hold, as usual, with all these academisation type things. There's always a bit of land that's disputed by someone, but I think we're getting quite close to finishing that one up. We've been keeping a close watch on the school sufficiency places, and you may have seen that we achieved a good result for secondary entry with over 98% first choices filled and alternatives for the remaining 2 other children already in the bag. And I'd like to pay particular acknowledgement here to the lady who does that, Julie. She is an absolute magnificent tower of strength in terms of school sufficiency and running the whole of that empire. It's quite a detailed one, but we are very, very fortunate to have had her in the slot. SEND. It's challenging, expensive, both in support and cash, but good forward thinking by staffs, making up for a lack of specialist schools in Rutland. Our aim to keep our folks in mainstream wherever possible, with some additional gentle help and confidence building measures. And that's in what's been going on at Edith Weston at the primary level, and is now in full swing at Uppingham College. One of the sticking points on the SEND side is the communication and relationship with understandably concerned parents. And I think over the last few months, there has been a really focused effort by our team to talk to all the parents, and I believe that we now have a pretty good working relationship with them all, and there is an open channel of communication. We won't keep everybody happy, understandably. If you've got a young person with a problem, you want the very best for them, but we are working hard now. The corporate parenting side has been doing really well. And I'm very proud of the team that we've got in Lee Martin and his team. He's built up a strong team now. In fact, last week we had a gathering of folk for who were in the corporate parenting type of thing. It was held at Greetham, a very good day, and the strength of his team came out loud and clear. There's always a few bumps on the road, but really very, very positive. They also look after the unaccompanied asylum seekers. We've got 10 at the moment, and they're all doing well. In fact, one is on the short finals to complete a plumbing diploma. Another one's an artist, and another one is quite a good musician. But they have lots of things going for them, football and gatherings. So it's really good. Ukrainian children and families have been well received. We've had them spread through all our schools. It's amazing. The secondary schools have had about 6 apiece, and we've had up to about 43 within all our schools, just spread around. The families have settled in well. They look after them themselves well, and I think the children get on well in school. The Children's Centre. Children's Centre has been an absolute beacon, I think, through both COVID and now. I happened to jump in there the other day. I'd gone to the library, and as I came out of the library, it was pouring with rain. So I thought, I'll just jump into the Children's Centre, which is conveniently next door. And I was almost mown over by the number of prams and young mums already heading in that direction. It's a vibrant place, and it's extremely well run by our team, who in particular, I think during the COVID time where they had to go off piste a bit and use their initiative, they were able to do lots of things to give the families as much help as possible. I'm hoping that we can spread some of that expertise into Ketton, into Ryle, and into Uppingham, where we've got libraries, and with a little bit of forethought and a little bit of help, we should be able to, you know, help some of those other people who are not in the immediate Oakham area. What I've got for you, because I knew that the Children's Centre was one of Nick's important things to look at, I've got some a PowerPoint which I just want to flash through to give you a feel for what goes on there. Can we start with the one on the right hand side, do you think, as opposed to this one? It's the little feet that you can see on there. And Donna Cartmel-Fry is a real pillar and enthusiast there. And if we just flash through these, just to give you a feel for the sort of things that go on there. Safeguarding babies from harm. There's a project called ICON, which came to the front probably about a year ago when it was launched, for shaking of babies' heads and things like that. And there's a really strong push to try and brief parents on how to treat that through well. Next one, please. Pediatric first aid. And this came in really well, as I'll show you on the next slot, when someone who'd just been to a training session was faced with an incident and was able to suddenly think back and thought, I can deal with that. Next. Visits, and if Ken Bull was here, I'd say, the fire service is very good at being somewhere where the kids like to see, and they can also learn well from it. Next. The health visitor clinics, we've done a lot of that. Speech and language training. I know at first hand, because my 2-year-old grandson had not been speaking for some time, and I was getting more and more worried about him. And I was watching from the touchline, if you like, and saying to my daughter, how's it getting on? And I think it was because during COVID, they weren't with lots of other children. They were on their own quite a lot and at home. So we have had an increase in the requirement for speech and language training. We never have enough instructors and people well qualified to do that, but we are moving in the right direction. It's coming on well. My young grandson is now speaking, 10 to the dozen and leaping along. And what we're doing is to make sure that that training, we give as much training as possible to other people. Mental health, you will know well that everyone is worried about mental health at the moment. Our team are really just trying to spread all the help and advice to reach the right sort of places. I just wanted to give you a feel for the sort of work that was going on in that children's centre. It is really, really good. If you just cut to the next one, this is more of a parental note of just saying how much it's been appreciated, really. Not that one. We've just done that one. That's not that one. You had them both on, but before. Parent voice, I think it is. That's it. And if you just flash through that. Just go hard on the left-hand side. You can see to where number 2 is. That's it. Click on there. It's continuing to develop the community hub in the children's centre. Christmas party. Come on, just keep coming on down. I just want to give you a feel for it. And down again. Basically, I just wanted to give you a feel that the Children's Centre, which I remember a couple of years ago, was a slight bone of contention for us as whether we would take it on or not. People were worried about the noise that they might get from nearby and things like that. Well, let me say it is a really good, flourishing centre, and it is likely to be the nub of our family hub as we go forward. And in fact, we've just adjusted the constitution so that the Children's Centre and the family hub have the same constitution to run it, and the same people will do it. So to cut to the quick, the bottom line, the whole of education and children's services, it's a challenging field fraught with family concerns, disadvantaged children, and expensive bills to be met. It has not been helped by the pandemic, unaccompanied young asylum seekers, and the war in Ukraine. All these things have come together to just make it a little more difficult for everybody. All these factors have exacerbated the task, but in some ways have also helped us to be more agile, think smarter, and to improve our community focus. My biggest worry is workforce churn, increasing market costs and keeping strong oversight and motivation of everybody. And I think it'll be an ongoing battle, but I'm very pleased and very grateful for having a really dedicated staff who work very, very hard on a difficult subject and do their very best for us. I'll try and take any questions from you if you need any.
Thank you, Councillor Wim. Will be members. Councillor Ainsley.
Thank you. Thank you for that very comprehensive report, David. Regarding Send Communications, I know that it has been a bumpy road and continues to be a bumpy road, but I can report that things, as far as I'm aware, are improving. But unfortunately, I had a phone call only yesterday, and it actually concerns, and I don't expect you to be able to answer this now, but I thought I might pose it. We know that adults who are eligible for care and support receive a direct payment, which can help them to have control of their lives. It's my understanding that direct payments have been suspended for adults. This is what I was informed. I can only tell you what I was told. So the question is that there were definite concerns about the SEND community, because obviously their education, health and care plans extend until they're 25. So they wondered whether in fact they were going to be subject to the same restrictions and that they were going to stop receiving their direct payments. So that's a question. I don't expect an answer right now, but if you are able to, that'd be wonderful.
Yes, Mr. Andrews, if you'd like to clarify.
I'll clarify in part. So no, the direct payment still exists for adult care. I think what people are referring to is the direct payment for carers, the 17 carers that get direct payments for aspects of their lives like gardening, shopping, things like that. And that was a council decision at the budget.
So basically, the person who contacted me has got their wires crossed. It's actually for carers, not actually
so it is for
people
carers,
being cared for.
Yeah, so carer support still exists, but the direct payment for, which is for a very small number of the carers that exist in the county, was stopped along. It's in line with what most of the local authorities have done.
Thank you.
You happy with that, Councillor Ainsley?
I most certainly am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brown, Councillor P. Brown.
It's a question on the higher needs block payment. We apparently have just over £1 million worth of deficit on this. I understand that it's a problem for all councils and that everybody's hoping that the government's going to address this. But what I was slightly concerned about was in your report. It said at 2.2.4, analytical approach to examine current projects designed to bring the higher needs block deficit into balance. That implies to me that we're going to be taking steps and cuts to fund that higher needs deficit. And if so, that's quite a lot of money to find from the budget of SEND. So do you have any update on that?
Ms. Godfrey has her hand up, so maybe she can answer that question.
Yes, thank you. I can answer the question. So at the moment, the high needs block is running at a deficit, as you're very well aware. There's a statutory override in place until 2026, which means that's a government statutory override, which means that that deficit does not affect the council's general fund. We are part of the DfE Delivering Better Value programme currently, which started in January 2023. We're going through the first phase of that, which is a diagnostic, but the aim of the Delivering Better Value programme is twofold. It's to stall the increase in the deficit, and also to eventually bring us into a sustainable position where we can have a balanced budget. That will be many years in the future in terms of a balance, but the whole programme is as I said, DFE programme, we're one of 55 local authorities nationally who are part of the programme. And I will be bringing a full update on the programme once we've got through the diagnostic phase, which is due to end by the end of June, and will result in an implementation plan. So I'm very happy to come back to a future scrutiny with more information as we go through that programme.
Thank you very much. Councillor Brown, are you happy with that reply?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wilby.
Yeah, can I just add to that? The whole reason for us doing the inclusion projects is to try and make sure that we can look after all our own within county, as opposed to having to send them out to expensive schools and things and that without county. And so that's where the inclusion projects have really been working hard. And what we've been doing in parallel with that is making sure that as many of our workforce as possible from the schools go to courses which enable them to be able to look after our children more in the normal school.
The point I was just concerned about was how radical this bringing into balance was going to be, and I think that's been explained now. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions, members? That was almost a dead heat there. I'll go with Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Chair. It's nice to get in between a Brown. I'm going to say a couple of things that I'm sure Councillor Wilby is well aware of, but I just want to share it. I'm sure you're aware that there are 530 pupils between the ages of 5 and 16 in Rutland that have free school meals. I'm also sure you're aware that a very dedicated team here in Rutland are organising a series of activities for holidays specifically designed for that cohort, which will include various things to engage them, and crucially a free lunch, which they'll miss out otherwise. I'm reliably informed that the course entry into this is organised via the schools, which they get referred, as it were. Take up, I believe, from the primary schools is very good, as I'd expect, but possibly not quite so good from the senior schools in the county. And I wonder if Councillor Wilby might like to give the principals of the schools a little nudge and point them in the direction of this excellent activity programme, because the more of these children that get on it, the better for them and everybody concerned.
Councillor Wilby.
Thank you very much, Councillor Payne. That's a point well made, and I know that our team have been making sure that all the advertising for that is sent to all the schools, but I will make sure that we give another tick on the box for it. Thank you. Thank you for bringing it to my attention.
Yes.
The reason I've done it, obviously, is because this is a notoriously difficult to get to group. They're very sadly, their parents are often quite slow in coming forward, so they need extra encouragement, and I'm hoping we can do as much to encourage them.
Ms. Godfrey's got a comment, I believe.
Yeah, just to reassure you, Councillor Payne, on top of the communications that we have obviously directly with schools, there is also some targeted work being done through our early help service as well, in relation to, particularly as you point out, the older age group, to encourage them to attend as well. So there's a kind of two or three pronged approach being taken to encourage that. Ultimately, for some of our older children, they vote with their feet. So there's an element of that too.
Thank you.
Could I just say,
Yep.
My experience of teenagers is make it a good lunch and you'll probably hook them in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Councillor G. Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that comprehensive review of the children's area, Councillor Wilby. The one area I'd like to just have a couple of words on is the Youth Council. I've been very fortunate to have some discussions with the Youth Council over this last couple of months. And in fact, they linked into one of the parish council meetings in the Ketton ward, and were very impressive, handled the questions extremely well from the parish councillors. The question I've got is, it looks as though the vast majority currently of the Youth Council is from the Oakham area. One exception is the Youth Western. And there are virtually none from Ryle Ward or Ketton Ward. And I wondered, I've made some suggestions to the officers concerned, but I wonder if we can really push that forward, because we seem to be somewhat Oakham-centric in our activities, even Uppingham somewhat limited in their activity. So I'm just wondering how we can spread the word, and even through parish councils and through parents, not just through the children at school, which seems to be a classic route. The other point that was raised was we only seem to go to the 3 key schools, UCC, Casterton, Harrington, obviously, and Syfor, and Great Casterton. And I think there was discussion about the other schools, Oakham School and Stamford School, where a lot of children from our community go to those schools and could quite readily be part of the Youth Council. They shouldn't be eliminated because they're not going to those 3 schools. And I just wonder if you want to comment on that and then take it forward with the officers. And I have to say the officers were very helpful in the discussions that we had.
Councillor Wilby.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Brown. All points well made. And in fact, I have a meeting with the Youth Council coming up. In fact, I've got a couple of meetings with them in the next couple of weeks, and I'll certainly take that through. I know firsthand that we have had representation from UCC and also at the corporate parenting meeting, which not everyone was able to get to. The main protagonist was actually the head girl of Casterton College. So I take your point on, and it should not ever be Oakham centric. It should be right across the board. And you and I know that we represent the fringes of the county. So it's really important that we hook everybody in. And as to the major schools, the private schools, Oakham and Uppingham, I will explore that. It might be more difficult to get them on board, depending on how their diaries are running and their programs. But I'll certainly give it a try, because you know, they can both learn from each other. Thank you.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Brown? Okay, any more questions from members? In that case, Councillor Wilby, thank you very much for that very comprehensive report. And we'll move on to item 10, Levelling Up Fund Round 2, acceptance of grant funding. And we're going to receive a report which is numbered 50/2023 from Councillor Stevenson, the Leader of the Council and Portfolio Holder for Policy, Strategy, Partnerships and Economy, and Penny Sharp, the Strategic Director of Places. Are you going first, Councillor Stevenson?
I am going to go first. I will be relatively brief. I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear, Chair. As members are aware, there is a decision to be taken on this coming full council. As we've already mentioned this evening, this meeting was postponed from the 9th. Since then, the full council reports, including any exempt papers and a redacted public version of the MOU, have now been published. We wanted to make sure that as much of that information with regard to the MOU was in the public domain to ensure absolute transparency. It's probably helpful just to offer some background context, as is covered in the council report. The Levelling Up Fund Round 2 was announced in March 22, obviously with a clear sort of, I suppose, menu, if you like, of things that could be applied for. We noticed that there were synergies between Melton and Rutland, and so therefore it seems sensible to put forward a combined bid, obviously with the title of Rural Innovation in Place. This was a decision taken by Cabinet in June to submit the bid. There was a delay in the portal opening, which wasn't until August 22, and as members were aware, the decision to award monies was actually also delayed, and that came out in January 23. As you are aware, again, just for background, there are 3 key elements to the bid outlined in 2.11 of the council report: investing in our health economy in the form of a Meditech Digital Innovation Centre, investing in our public transport with an integrated transport and approach to that, and investing in our cultural and enhancing our tourism offer with an enhanced digital visitor experience. Clearly, what was important with that bid was the evidence base that was presented. A brief summary of that is outlined in 2.15 and 2.16 of the council report, not least noting our poor social mobility, poor growth of the economy, amongst other things, disparities in our earnings, and health inequalities linked to a high proportion of vulnerable older people. The bid, when it went in, had a broad concept stage including the costings. Clearly, we were very successful. It was a highly competitive process. Only 1 in 5 of the bids were granted. Rutland did very well. I offer that as background because, of course, the decision that council is taking on Monday forms 8 parts: 2 approvals in terms of the memorandum of understanding, an approval for Rutland County Council acting as the grant administrator. We then have 3 delegations and 3 items for noting. The purpose of this evening is for members of the panel to be able to ask questions. Clearly, if they are technical, I will hand over to officers. If it's with regard to more strategic thinking, I will field those, but look to officers to assist with additional detail. But the aim is for you to be able to seek clarity and deepen understanding ahead of making that decision with the rest of members on Monday evening. And I'm just glancing over at Mrs. Sharp to see if she wanted to add anything at this stage, or whether we're happy to go straight to questions.
So are you just going to chip in with the answers to the questions then, Mrs. Sharp, rather than do a presentation?
Yes, I've got nothing to add at this stage.
Okay, thank you. In that case, members, it's over to you for questions for Councillor Stevenson.
Sorry, Chair, just to note, members of the panel may wish to go into the exempt papers, but obviously I will leave that to the panel and yours discretion for moving us, but just to be minded that there are appendices in that cabinet report that contain exempt information.
Yes, members, if we are going to refer to the exempt papers, then we will need to go into an exempt session. So please think about your questions before asking them to give us the chance to do that. Okay, over to you for questions. Councillor Ainsley,
thank you very much indeed. Yeah,
right.
I've got a very observation to starting with 216, the 3rd bullet point, challenging economic outcomes for women. Does that exclude men? I'm just reading off the paper. The paper 216, 2nd bullet point, challenging economic outcomes for women.
I think there's a disparity in our wages.
There is, but does that mean you're excluding?
No,
being slightly frivolous here, but I do feel that
I get that's a very fair observation. I think, yeah, I mean, clearly a prosperous.
it's across all, surely.
Yeah, of course, but we were highlighting that there are some elements of data coming forwards within our economy that we are duty bound to address, because we do want to be a county for everyone.
This statement doesn't say for everybody, though, does it? And I just wonder slightly, perhaps it urgently need a renewal, rewording. Yeah. It just seems to me that
So as you're aware, Levelling Up Fund is very much focused around levelling up, so addressing disadvantage in local areas, and needed to be supported by a compelling evidence base in order to be able to justify the case for investment. And our women in Rutland are more disadvantaged than men and below the national average for wages, hence highlighting that specific fact.
Okay, I'll move on. Thank you.
Have you got another question, councillor Ainsley?
Yes. Yes, surely. I think along with everybody, I do worry about the fact that the heavy burden that's going to fall upon us as we meet our obligations and actually deliver the back-to-back, as we actually look to administer the plan. And I just wondered, this is something we brought up earlier, was we see we've got some, we feel that it'd be interesting to actually have go, no-go points within the plan. So that, so you've obviously got some highlighted points where you actually, but we also feel there should be some go, no-go points, particularly when it comes to Melton or other areas not meeting their obligations, and particularly if we were to actually experience difficulties within the plan. So we felt that would be a useful addition to actually put go, no-go points. There's only need to be a couple.
I'll do the very broad sweep answer, and then I'll bring in Mr. Andrews. Clearly, as you saw within the papers, there's a very, very rigorous approach to governance and a very rigorous approach to the overview of those projects as they develop. Clearly, the biggest risk will be at the point that you're thinking about putting a spade into the ground that you're contracting those, and that's why there's a very, very tight governance framework. So should there be a position where actually those business cases, something absolutely, another war, horrendous things happen, then we can put the brakes on. The decision that we're taking on Monday is actually to move forwards with that memorandum of understanding, enabling us to move from a concept stage to the detail and stress testing. And certainly there will, I'm sure, be some re-engineering around those costings, with a constant dialogue with DLUC, independent auditing, to make sure that we are absolutely minimising and mitigating that risk. And I'm sure you've seen from the MOU, there is no possibility of clawback at this point. I'm sure officers will want to add more technical detail to that answer.
Mr. Andrews.
Yeah, sorry, thank you, Chair, through you. I was just going to add that any well-run programme will have clear gateways. And I think what you're asking for is us to be upfront that where those gateways will exist. Clearly, the MOU is not legally binding, so those gateways become very important to us to manage the risk, particularly when we, cash flow is probably the biggest risk about payment once you're committed to elements of the programme. So and that's the point, you want your clear, as you say, go, no go, which is what a gateway in a good programme is. So we'll be clear up front about where those exist as we finalise the programme.
Yeah, if I may just add to that, and as it sets out in the report, these, particularly for the big capital projects, they are going to be in excess of £1 million. So they will be a decision for council at the point of deciding whether to, it will be a council decision to procure and proceed with the projects at that point.
I do realise things are at a very early stage at the moment, but it's just, I think it's really important to actually just stress that we need these very strong gateways, go, no go points. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ainsley. Other members, questions? Councillor Paul Brown.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This was originally stated that it was being remitted on the basis that no additional revenue costs would arise to the council. The level of performance management, the level of integration that's going to have to be between the two councils, the amount of different risk areas that we're looking at, and there's 3 of them, is going to involve a considerable amount of work. I can't see that it is in the budgets that have been given. I'm trying to not go into exempt matters, that there is any real provision for this. There is a lot of officers' time that's going to be involved in this. If not more than one officer will be probably having to be full-time involved in this. How can it possibly be that there's going to be no cost to the council? revenue?
It's not a question that there will be no cost to the council, it's that there will be no additional cost to the council. So some of, particularly around the three work streams around culture and transport, we've very consciously integrated those into the work that we're already doing as an authority to transform the way we deliver services. So some of that will be looking to use existing staff resource that are already considering these issues, as well as looking to use existing revenue budgets as we move forwards to support those activities. The programme is a capital funding programme, but it is possible to capitalise certain staffing costs, which we have built in and intend to do. So, for example, capital programme delivery manager we can fund directly through the Levelling Up funding. We also have a couple of other grant funds that council have allocated to us. So UK Shared Prosperity Fund and the Rural England Prosperity Fund, both of which are predominantly revenue. And we will be looking to maximise the use of those fundings to complement the delivery of the LUF programme.
Thank you. It is a basic tenet that this is is only going to be a capital thing and not a revenue thing. So you're quite happy that we can capitalise certain elements of revenue to get through that barrier.
Yes, we can. We have to do so carefully within the rules of SIPFA, and Kirsty Nutton, who's actually on the call, and our 151 officer will have to authorise on a regular basis as part of the LUF assurance framework that we've spent the money appropriately.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brown. Other members? Councillor Gordon Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Can I start off by saying thank you for the late information that we've received over the last few days. It certainly answers many of the questions that I raised. I thank you for that. I think it's important that we say at this point in time that the MOU provides a lot of clarity, which wasn't available in the report that came to scrutiny first time round. And it's not a binding document, and therefore I feel quite comfortable personally, I don't know how other members feel, about that being approved on Monday. However, and also the legal document between ourselves and Melton is now much clearer, and I'm delighted to see some aspects of that which clarify the arrangements between ourselves and Melton, and those were questions I asked, and they've been answered not necessarily in the document, but quite clearly in the document that came from our legal advisors. So I think that's a major step forward and takes some of the risk out. Just going on then from there, I still have concerns about the revenue costs, as Councillor Brownlee has mentioned. I'm concerned that we're going to be making savings elsewhere to pay for the work here, and I feel very uncomfortable at that. You know, in the sense that we could say, well, hang on a minute, if we didn't have this this money, then we could make savings and we could be in a better position for our services elsewhere. And I think that hasn't been explained sufficiently well in the document, but I'll ask you maybe to explain that in some more detail. I think the other big issue for me is this is probably the biggest project I've said before since the bypass in terms of capital, and I'm very worried about the cost side of it. You probably saw the note that I put through about the ABI report saying that construction costs have risen by anything up to 25%, in some cases 50%, since this bid was in, and therefore the implications for the new costings and what we're actually going to deliver and can we meet what we said we'd deliver is fairly fundamental. That is why I think the comments that Councillor Ainsley made about go no go is even more important. And I would go further and maybe suggest as a recommendation from this group tonight that those go no goes should actually go back to Cabinet for review and not just be delegated to the officer and the portfolio holder, because I think they are so critical to the future success of this project. There should be a point where it comes back to Cabinet and they go, yeah, we understand the risks we're now taking. We accept it as an executive group, not just as one individual, and therefore take it forward from there. So that would certainly be a suggestion I'll make later on this evening on that point, and maybe you could comment on that, Councillor Stevenson, later. I think we did that on both OEP and Officers Mess. And we pulled out of both of those because we could not meet the criteria that's been laid down at the start of the project. So there's good reasons for that. And I certainly at that time I took that to Cabinet, and Cabinet agreed with the recommendations not to proceed. One of the things that I'd asked for, and it's not been made available, I'd happy to see on an exempt basis for Monday night, is just exactly where these two hubs, Medihub, Moby Hub, will be located on the Rutland Memorial Hospital site. We're talking, very general, and yet we're being asked to, go ahead with this absolutely with no idea what the implications of that are on that existing site. And I certainly would appreciate that. The other point I raised, which has not been referred, I can't see it so far, and having only looked at the papers in the last 24 hours, because I actually am on holiday and should be currently in Norfolk and not here, is that the Major Project Board, we've not seen the terms of reference of that. We're talking about it, but normally at this stage, council will be asked to approve it, given it's a project of high risk and in excess of £1 million. And I would have thought that we'd have seen the terms of reference and owner, etc., all the rest of that at this point, or at a very early point. And I'd have thought this point because we're making that decision. And then finally, I think there's a suggestion, but it's not clear as a recommendation, but it's in the paperwork, that the Economic Development Group or Task and Finish Group has a role to play in the monitoring and evaluation in relation to both the capital that comes in from the county council and also the ongoing work of the group. I think there's some discussion about that in the last 48 hours. I've not been privy to it, but I'd be interested to hear what that is about. So those are my key points. And then finally, I think the point slightly made by Councillor Brown-E was in relation to officer capability, officer time. It's been made clear in the last 2 years, certainly, that officers have had no time to do other things. And yet here we are sitting here saying, yeah, no problem, we can do a £15 million project, no problem at all. It's water off a duck's back. And I'm concerned about that quite clearly, that, have we really got that capability? And that's all the more reason that we have those go and no-go points absolutely laid out clearly for Cabinet to just reconsider at each stage to make sure that if we are struggling with capability, capacity or skills, that's recognised and appropriate actions are taken, and Cabinet are fully aware and make the appropriate decision.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. That was a very lengthy set of questions, and I see Councillor Stevenson has been busy writing things down. So
could be a shopping list, Councillor Brown. No.
So if you'd like to go through those points one by one, that would be very helpful. Thank you very much. Councillor Brown-E, would you like to turn your microphone off, please?
Excellent. Right. Councillor G. Brown, I shall start going through those things. Some of it may be slightly repetitive, and I will obviously be looking over to Mrs. Sharp just to add sufficient detail and any technical bits. In terms of those recommendations, when we are at the point of going, actually, yeah, we've done the detailed programme of works, it's been through the assurance process, we now need to take that, probably the biggest risk moment of going, yeah, let's go for it. Obviously, we have our own council thresholds, financial thresholds for those decisions, and I would certainly be expecting those to be coming back to Cabinet or indeed full council, depending on the thresholds. Clearly, we will use our governance structures to determine that, but that recommendation is noted and supported. In terms of Rutland Memorial Hospital as a site, because I think there is a sense of actually almost, wanting to see an architect's model, actually almost being able to touch the miniature version of it. I think it is worth noting on Tuesday at the Health and Wellbeing Board, clearly we are working very closely with health partners in terms of an overall feasibility plan for that site. Mrs. Sharp, would you like to add a bit more detail to that? Because I'm mindful I've given a very broad sweep and then I'll come back to the other points.
Yeah, I'm happy to add. you might need to remind me of some of the questions, Gordon. If I start with I'll start with the one around the sort of changing cost situation. So when we submitted the bid, all local authorities were anticipating an announcement in August. So we're essentially 8 months behind from where we were anticipating that we'd be starting the programme. And as you say, the whole economic climate has changed since the time of submission. And DLUC absolutely recognises that. So they have asked us to provide an updated position around the baseline alongside the signed MOU. And that work is underway with a flourish at the moment in terms of updating all of the costings, the project milestones and the outputs that were originally profiled. And that links to your question about where is it going on the site. We developed the plans around where we thought it would go on the site, but that's still to be finalised and determined through the discussions with health colleagues. So there's a concept about where it might go, but actually since then circumstances have changed. There's now an opportunity through our asset review to think a little bit differently than when we submitted the bid around how we could maximise the potential of that site with partners. So not just the hospital site, but our Jules House site and Oakham Medical Practice, and think about the connectivity with the care village behind and the sixth form school and Harrington, so that we can start to develop a concept around the health and social care campus, which then really does start to help consolidate investment in health provision and health facilities, as well as health innovation, and is seen certainly by all of our health partners as a real opportunity to help attract workforce, and with the proximity of the school there's a real opportunity to start to develop some sort of education and career pathways around that as well. So there isn't a fixed location for those buildings at the moment, and in part of the review of everything that we submitted, there's still an option that means that we might not be doing 2 buildings. There's an option to think about refurb, and that's all the work that's going on now to nail what we are going to be proposing in April in terms of the final proposition. So there's a site meeting walkabout tomorrow, which will be having another look at all of the opportunities around that, so that we maximise the value out of the sort of collective land holdings in that area. So in terms of refreshing the cost, and I think you asked about the role of the economy task and finish group. I think
yes.
I think there is some consideration around that. Yeah, Mark,
Yeah, so this isn't something pushed forward necessarily by us. It was a conversation I had with the chair, and we were talking about opportunities of member involvement and recommendation, and we just saw an opportunity of a meeting group at a time when the costings were being redeveloped, that there was an opportunity to bring something to members as a critical friend on the way to the board. Notwithstanding your points about how the setup and the terms of reference, etc. So it was more of an offer of an opportunity if Scrutiny, as a task and finish group of Scrutiny, wanted to utilise that. The timing kind of fits with our programme. Clearly beyond that, we probably want to look at the gateways and their involvement in members that you talked about before. Some of those will naturally go to, because of our constitution, to either cabinet or council anyway. But I do take your point that there may be others that we feel are important for the executive to consider as well.
And I think that that will come to the economic strategy task and finish group in April, which is what we agreed. Councillor Stevenson, would you like to carry on with your answering?
Oh, yeah, I was actually just going to make a further point with that actually there'll be a huge amount of natural overlap, because actually, as we've pointed out in the paper, there are significant parts of the transformation programme, how we're looking at public transport. You've mentioned the economic strategy task and finish group. So I think that there'll be sort of very naturally occurring opportunities, because this is sort of a key capital investment element for actually delivering on that sort of future Rutland and the bits within the corporate strategy. And I think, I mean, in an ideal world, it would be really good if members of this council, all members of this council, were incredibly proud of what we are planning to achieve for the future. And part of being proud of that is, of course, feeling that you are really engaged and on the same path as everybody else with that. Councillor Brown, I think you mentioned something very specific about terms of reference for the board. Yeah, do you want to just, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I was just going to come on to, if that's so, Chair, just in terms of the governance. So we have assessed the project in line with the council's corporate project management framework. It's identified as a high risk project, which means it's cabinet decision. It's very high risk projects that are considered by council. So it's for cabinet to develop the terms of reference, and they will come back to cabinet the other side of the elections. So hopefully sort of June, July time, we'll get cabinet to approve terms of reference. But it's got a robust governance structure around it that reflects the major the corporate project framework. So in order, and I think this is a sort of point made earlier, there is an executive delivery programme board, which is Melton and Rutland, and we'll have the leaders, the portfolio holders for economic development and the finance portfolio holders, plus the 2151 officers and the place directors that will be providing oversight of the programme. And then, as you'll have seen from the assurance framework, it's extremely comprehensive in terms of what DLUC is expecting in terms of monitoring and assurance, particularly from the Section 151 officer. I think the other point to make in terms of managing the risk around costs is, and I suppose this goes in part to this go no go, we draw down the money on a 6 monthly basis. So it's paid, we understand it's paid 3 months in arrears and 3 months in advance. So we will limit our financial exposure in that way until there's a point where we will be potentially entering into this design build contracts. So, and that will, as I said before, undoubtedly be a decision for council. Have I missed? What else have I missed?
There was something on savings.
Oh, impact. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, the savings issue of whether we're making savings and then spending them on these projects.
Oh, Peter and Paul robbing somebody.
Smoking barrels.
Excellent. Well, I was going to say clearly the having, in a very broad picture, having a council that is financially sustainable to make savings to then spend them on another project doesn't make complete sense there. However, I think the answer is no, because we're pulling down it's within the work programme.
Yeah, so what the capital funding does is allow us to achieve the savings that we've identified in or potential savings that we've identified in some of those areas. I'll be careful that we don't stray into exempt at this point, but the capital investment allows us to fundamentally look at reconfiguring and redesigning services so that there is less revenue impact on the council in the future.
Yes, go for supplementary, Councillor Brown.
On that point, then, I understand what you're saying. The question I then got is, how will that be monitored? And I'm just thinking of the recommendations that might come from this group later this evening. We've got the member transformation group, the leaders of the various groups meeting together and looking at transformation process. Is that where that would be seen and viewed upon? And so maybe we make a recommendation in respect of that group, looking in relation to the additional savings we're making because we're investing this capital down the road. And on the other side, we've got the economic task and finish group looking at the short-term position in respect of the costs, the risks associated with that, and almost the new bid, but I wouldn't call it that outside of here, the new bid, and therefore also the capital. We got a capital sum to come to cabinet at some stage, maybe even council. It's 1.2 million, so it's probably council for approval to be linked in with this. And again, that's a go stage as well. So I think it's trying to see this big picture of what we're doing, when we're doing it, and who's going to have a view over it. Obviously, cabinet are ultimately responsible, but where the members sit in this in terms of economics and transformation.
Yes, Mr. Andrews.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, the short of it is it's all part of the transformation. We have to, and that's what Penny was talking about. We've got to see this as a whole. I wouldn't want to put words into the executive that is here after the council about how they might want to govern transformation. But recommendations from the committee, I'm sure, would be considered by them. So the group that currently exists on transformation is there until this last meeting, which is March, and then we stop for the election. We have discussed that there will be some need to govern transformation and the delivery of the savings as we move forward, beyond just decision making in council, because some of it doesn't require members' decisions, but it does require a political steer in terms of the impact on some services. So but I wouldn't want to suggest what that is, but you may want to put a suggestion forward for the new executive to consider.
Councillor Ainsley.
Thank you. Bit of a frog in the throat this morning or this evening. I just want to say that I am indeed proud of this project, and I think it's a very worthwhile project. But of course, I do remain very cautious. Despite the fact we have a robust governance, etc., I think it is a very high-risk project. I've written a couple of questions down here, all of which have been answered during Councillor G. Brown's questions. And I'm really pleased to hear about the approach to the collective land holdings for RMH, OMP and Jules. I thought that was really useful nugget of information. Thank you.
Mrs. Sharp.
Sorry, I realised there was one question that I didn't cover, which is around capability and capacity. I think we've covered the capacity in terms of the earlier question, that there is the ability, and we will be recruiting additional resource in finance and to support the delivery of the capital programme, and a range of technical consultants who we've already got on board, the cost consultants and the architect who did the initial bid and working with us to refresh those costs. In terms of capability, you have a very experienced team in terms of delivery of large-scale regeneration programmes, and that was one of the reasons for creating the head of service around sustainable economy role, so that we had the ability to be able to deliver large-scale projects that can transform the economy of the council. We've also got with our schools colleagues demonstrable capability and ability to deliver large-scale capital projects on time and on budget, and so there is resource that we can pull from across the organisation, and also with finance and other colleagues, we will be managing this very tightly.
Thank you. Members. Right, well, while members are thinking about the questions, I will, sorry.
Something additional about health, because we were on the health site and we didn't talk about it, and I thought it's probably worthwhile as something was fed back to the Health and Wellbeing Board on the matter. So in the bid, we talk about some match funding associated with it. Now, clearly, if we have some match funding, we want it to make the most of that and benefit our community. There were some questions about the LUF and its impact on actual health provision, not just in terms of the benefits that Penny said. But the match funding goes into a proposition, notionally at the moment, a proposition that health have around increasing the number of procedures and outpatients at RMH Hospital. So when there was an indicative allocation from the executive, they were very clear that any money to health wasn't going just to refurbish buildings. It had to increase the number and capacity to deliver stuff locally. So the business case that's come in at the moment in draft form that was described at the Health and Wellbeing Board is for a enhanced procedure suite, which will undertake a range of different minor procedures, as well as increasing the number of outpatients. And that will be a feature of a health and care campus that also includes improved transport links and the training and research facilities that we talked about. So I just wanted to reassure members that the investment that we were linking to the RMH or the health development is actually a return on real-time health procedures for our community.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. I've got a couple of questions myself. In report 50/2023, 2.7, page 5, it mentions, I think, the match funding, which you just mentioned, Mr. Andrews, and it says match funding was going to be sourced from developer contributions. Are we certain that we can to get that from developers? And in the same report, Appendix B, page 12, does the money have to be, it's delivery and implementation, does the money have to be paid back if a project fails for whatever reason? And there's no clawback facility in the Memorandum of Understanding. Is there a clawback facility anywhere else?
Well, I was just going to say, in terms of the 1.2 allocated developer funds, that was in a cabinet paper in December, and that is noting that it would need to come back for further decision making. In terms of the clawback with the MOU, yes, you're absolutely right. There is no option to claw back. I will just hand over, though, for a slightly more technical answer than I have just provided.
Well, just to confirm and add to the developer contributions, the money that it's money that we've already collected, that members or cabinet earmarked in December, in its December meeting, for so identified 1.5 million for potential investment in health. That's subject to a business case and as Mark Andrews has explained, there's some proposals that are worked up with health colleagues, and we'd expect that decision, again, because it's 1.2 million, to be coming back to council the other side of the election for approving that, the release of that funding into the health provision, subject to council being satisfied with the business case. Sorry, I've lost what was the other aspect. Sorry, the clawback. Clawback. There is no provision for clawback in the MOU or anywhere else. What I would say is the back-to-back agreement with Melton makes Melton responsible for delivery of their projects and gives us an ability to step in, not to deliver their projects, but to step in to stop the funding of them if for any reason we were concerned about their performance as well.
Okay, thank you. And my final point is in the Memorandum of Understanding 4.8, page 193. It says the Department of Levelling Up may not agree to changes in the spending profile. So is this a problem if a project overruns and they turn around and say we're not changing our profile, our spending profile?
It's a risk. It's a low risk, I would suggest, and certainly from previous experience and the positive conversations that we've already had with our area relationship manager in relation to this project, they are very clear that they are as keen as we are to see the project delivered. So the likelihood of that happening, I would suggest, is low.
Councillor Stevenson first, then Mr. Andrews.
Yeah, I was just to say that from a non-officer elected member perspective, when I've sat on boards, I felt very reassured with the conversations that are clearly happening with that, well, I mean, the fact that the person's called a relationship manager, I think probably is quite helpful, but clearly there is a desire for there to be successful delivery of this to help us to level up on our areas of inequality. And as I say, I felt completely reassured with that. And again, I think that governance structure that many, well, the 3 lines of defence, I believe they call it in the levelling up guide there, I think those sticking to those like glue will avoid that type of problem occurring.
Okay, Mr. Andrews.
Thank you. No, I was just going to talk, you mentioned overruns. I was just going to say that just to be clear, there's no way DLUC are going to give us any more money. But I think that they are extremely receptive to amending the programmes as we go in line with the sort of principles of the original bid.
Okay, thank you. Members, any more questions? Councillor P. Brown.
I don't know how far we can go into the back-to-back agreement, Mr. Chairman, because there are various aspects I wanted to ask about that.
I'm now looking at the monitoring officer. We cannot do that in the public session, I'm afraid.
Okay. Is it? Could I ask that it goes into exempt then?
Are you proposing that it goes
I
into
would
exempt?
propose that it goes into exempt.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ainsley. All those in favour? So that is carried, and we now go into an exempt session. So the recording will.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back in public session. Recording has begun.
Thank you very much, and welcome back to those who are listening in online. So we are now back in a normal session, and will not be discussing any exempt items. Are there any further questions for members of the team here on my left? I don't think there are, so we can go to the decision recommendations, being that the committee notes that the report will be presented to Council on the 27th of March 2023 with the proposed draft recommendations as listed in the report. I do not intend to read them all out. And advises of any additional issues. And these additional issues and recommendations are: 1, to provide clarity to members at the council meeting next Monday around the transformation project, change of services caused by the investment of the Levelling Up Fund, and that benefits will be brought forward. 2, that the Economic Development Group be involved in review and review the new base guideline timelines and the go/no-go points. 3, that the transformation inter-party group will be tasked with reviewing savings achieved by the capital expenditure. 4, to provide clarity to members at the council meeting on Monday of the potential of extending the work of the Levelling Up Fund to provide wide and deeper health provision in Oakham. 5, suggests that Scrutiny consider the board project terms of reference when it comes to cabinet to consider the implications of whether it should be considered as a very high risk project requiring council approval rather than a high risk project. And finally, 6, to consider a member visit to a similar MediHub to understand the concept and the opportunities. Members, we're going to need a proposal and a seconder, I would think, for that. Yep.
Check with Andrews and the other officers on the issues. I think the suggestions relate to some of the comments made this evening in non-exempt session, and therefore are just to help members in terms of the clarity of some of the points, particularly in relation to the investment and the savings and what the implications there are, because that wasn't clear. And then secondly, on the wider, deeper health opportunities that might exist through a reconsideration of what's original plan and what's now being considered. I think those are the 2 points where I saw Mr. Andrews' eyes go. And
Chairman, it was I was trying to take it in, but also there was a reference to something being provided for Monday as opposed to for Monday. You want clarity by Monday?
That was item 4, to provide clarity to members on Monday evening to the potential of extending the work of the Levelling Up Fund to provide wide and deeper health provision in Oakham.
Okay. Yeah.
it's not a written report, it would be.
Fine. Yeah, I understand now. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, you have it.
Okay, in that case, we need a proposer. I think Councillor Gordon Brown was proposing, seconding was Councillor Ainsley. All those in favour?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So far. Item 11, group and panel. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, right. Okay. So safe journey back to Norfolk, Councillor Brown. Item 11, group and panel updates. The first one being Economic Strategy Task and Finish Group to receive an update from myself. We had a meeting on the 21st of February and a presentation was given from Metro Dynamics, which gave an outline of the draft economic strategy. And during the discussion, following points were noted. The final draft of the economic strategy was hoped to be ready for review before the county council elections, with it then being presented to the council after those elections. And slide 6 of the presentation was there for the strategy to be built around. And then we identified 4 main priorities from the slide 11, and that was 1, supporting local businesses to grow, 2, enhancing Rutland's reputation, 3, accelerating the green transition, and 4, inclusive for all. There was a discussion and it was thought that the strategy needed to be focused and play on Rutland's strengths. Engagement with local businesses was needed to identify what they said they needed to grow and prosper. We need to encourage young people to live and work in Rutland so that the strategy could emphasise the opportunity for prosperous careers and affordable housing. Working with partners needs to include all neighbouring councils, not just Leicestershire, e.g. Northamptonshire, because there's an awful lot of building going on in and around Corby, Market Harborough district, Melton Mowbray, South Kesteven and Peterborough are also identified. The A1 is not currently counted as an economic corridor by Midlands Connect, so we thought that was something that maybe it should be. Agriculture being the biggest industry in Rutland was more emphasis should be needed of this that fact within the strategy. Rutland is a small place, but with that it means it's also agile, and the strategy needs to be bold and exciting, but also realistic. We don't need a strategy that we can't put into practice. So it was agreed that enhancing Rutland's reputation should be renamed Attracting Business to Rutland. And secondly, it was agreed that Inclusive for All should be renamed Opportunities for All. And thirdly, that the economic strategy document should be titled Much in Little, Multum in Parvo, as per the county's motto. And the date of the next meeting was proposed for early April, but that has yet to be decided.
It's been confirmed.
Has it?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm the chair, so I should know that, shouldn't I?
Though we had arranged a date, Chair, and unfortunately it clashed.
Oh, yes, that was something I couldn't do.
Yes.
I think I was
So
going
we
to talk to a
moved
WI group or something.
So we moved it. So
That's
now
right.
it's,
Yes,
I think
you
it's
did.
about on the
And it's all
12th
coming back
of
to me
April.
now. Yes, it is. So that's on the 12th of April. Is everybody happy? Okay. Yeah. Councillor Ainsley is unable to come. Next is highways and speeding to receive an update from Councillor Paul Brown.
Thank you, Chair. I come to this in a rather circuitous way, really. It was when we first had the meeting with Gail as chair as to what we would consider as being useful topics. I put this forward. That was the last meeting I attended until probably about now. And it fell on stony ground as far as I was concerned. Nobody picked it up. Then shortly after, well, about 2 meetings later, I understood the Council Bull was taking this on, in which case it was immediately decided that it was a useful thing to do. I was not further asked, but then I understood of after another meeting that Council Bull was no longer going to do it. And would I ask by this time, I'd be asked, and I said, yes, I would, but by this time we were only 2 or 3 months off from where we are now. And having made inquiries from various people, we all regarded it as rather short term to be able to do anything constructive in that period of time. So I'm afraid nothing has actually happened. In the context, we haven't even scoped it. So what I will do is pick this up. If I have the pleasure and honor of being re-elected next time, I will pick this up and continue with it. What I would say is that I have done one piece of individual work on timings and crossings over railway lines, which I did submit to the Planning Authority and the Highway Authority. And we'll have to see what happens from that, and it could be brought up again in the new task and finish group if it gets resurrected after the next election. So I'm sorry that I have nothing positive to give you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brown, for that update that you're going to update us at a later date. So we're going to resolve that the committee agreed that the highways and speeding task and finish group should cease. And we'll also agreed that after the elections in May 2023, the Strategic Overview and Scrutiny Committee should consider recommencing the highways and speeding task and finish group. So have we resolved that already? We don't need to propose.
Need a proposal.
Right, so we need a proposer for that. So Councillor Payne, seconder. 2 people. Let's say Councillor Wilson. All those in favour?
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Brown, can you just turn your microphone off, please? Thank you.
11C, Homelessness Evidence Panel to approve the amended rewording of recommendation 6.2 in the report, which is pages 3 to 4, I believe. Is everyone happy? No?
Thank you, Chair. The wording, I can confirm, had been amended and has been approved by Councillor Gail Waller, Chair of the Homelessness Evidence Panel, and Councillor Sam Harvey, the portfolio holder for Health, Wellbeing and Adult Care. However, the Strategic Director for Children and Families has since requested that the term domestic violence be amended to domestic abuse, as this was the correct terminology. So if councillors are happy, we will amend that.
Councillors, are you happy with that amendment? Seems eminently sensible to me. So do we need a proposer now?
Yes, please.
So can we have a proposer now, please? So that's Councillor Payne, seconder, Councillor Wilson. All those in favour?
Thank you.
Oops. Item 12, review of the forward plan and annual work plan. Has everyone looked at the plan? And any comments? Nope. That's good. Item 13, any other urgent business?
I have not been notified of any urgent business, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Date of next meeting will be Thursday, the 20th of April, 2023 at 7 p.m. In that case, the meeting is closed at exactly 9 o'clock.